Hey guys, it's Pete. I'm back for chapter 2 this morning. Some more good questions and thoughts from you guys posted on the forum, so I just wanted to cover some of them briefly. Um, Logan, I really liked your comment about, Reddit and whatnot. Um, I agree that in these online communities, you part of the success of the community comes from the fact that you have these common experiences, like any community. And I think it even ties into what Kristen asked later, like how did memes become so popular? Other than, the obvious factor that they involve humor and we like humorous things, they come from this like common, experience. Like I'm aware of that meme and you're aware of that meme, and now that's our own thing that we share, and that's funny, and like it's not as funny if everyone knows it, but if you know it and can apply it in a way that makes sense to you, now that's like something we share in common. And I think, right, you can see like references weeks later to something that people, shared an experience of on a site like Reddit or whatever the online community is. And, I agree they play a significant role in building an online community because you have community via shared experiences. It's a challenge that, you know, professors face trying to like teaching online classes is not easy. I'm going to be honest. I love face-to-face classes because you can do things in a face-to-face environment that are very difficult to do online, and to create a community where people actually want to come in and discuss and where they feel like part of a community is much more difficult online, and I don't have as much experience of that. But yeah, I think all these things lead to community building in an online environment. And also, a couple of you asked what CMC stands for. It's computer mediated communication. So, communication mediated via computers. Yeah, you're going to see CMC a lot, so it's good to know that. Tegan asked, what are the most prevalent social media sites? So I went and tried to dig that up for you here. These are the 15 most popular social networking sites as of October 2015. Not surprisingly, Facebook's number one, although people still talk about Facebook declining because, for one, young people aren't adopting to Facebook as much because, maybe your family's on there and you don't want your family to see everything that your friends can see or vice versa. But if you just look at, it's triple the nearest usage of Twitter. So it's still huge, huge, huge. Even if we hear about the decline of Facebook, it's still, a mega power and will be for time to come. Twitter and LinkedIn are not super surprising. I maybe would have thought Twitter would be a little bit closer to Facebook than it was. That gap is huge, but again, people haven't fully adopted Twitter yet. It really appeals to certain amounts of people, but doesn't appeal to other people in a way where Facebook is just more general. It's just so basic in what it does, and but yet at the same time offers a lot of really basic things that people want to be able to do. So I think that's where you see the difference there. LinkedIn, just the professional standard. Pinterest has really done well with women, and not just women, but is really successful with women. And to be the 27th most visited website in the world, or 13th, yeah. Somewhere, depending on how it's ranked, in the top 30, website in the world is pretty huge. Google Plus, no explanation needed there. Tumblr, Instagram. Maybe you would think Instagram's higher. I'm sure many of you use Instagram. You're probably saying, hey, where's Snapchat in here? But I think that's a sign of just how specialized oftentimes these social media sites are to young people, and you're only a very small portion of the population. If you've never heard of VK, this is just Facebook for Europe. basically. So just when you click on it, it looks just like Facebook, but 100 million active users, European social network. So that's what VK is. So anyways, all the way down to Vine at 10, and you can see the rest there at 15. So those are the most used worldwide social media sites as of this month. Oops, wrong thing there. How does social media affect our face-to-face interactions? And a lot of people ask similar questions, just worded slightly differently. Definitely when the internet rose to prominence, there were concerns in the communication population that this is going to ruin relationships, and you've seen this kind of perpetuated in the media, perhaps, like we don't even know how to talk to each other anymore. And there's a pretty well-known book called I think it's called something like Bowling Alone, where it talks about how in the past people would join bowling teams and people would invite their neighbor over for dinner, and we were you'd join an Elks Club, and like you were very much more civically engaged and like engaged with your community. And now instead we all go home, and the communities we're engaged in are mobile communities, like whatever communities we decide to be involved in online. And in that book it presents it as a negative thing. I try not to get into just good bad dichotomies. I think things are much more complicated than that, and I think social media has influenced our face-to-face interactions in some ways, but you can't just say it's a good thing or a bad thing. That's too simplistic. It's changed things. It has done a lot of very positive things in being able to maintain relationships in ways that weren't easy to do anymore, where you can maintain a friendship with someone that moves away like very easily. When I was a kid and you would read books written, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, the way they would like take, children who were characters that were children, and their relationship would be to have one family move somewhere else. Oh, we were friends and now my best friend's moving across the country. The end, right? And that's just not how it is anymore. We can much more easily maintain relationships at longer distances, and that's a great thing. And yes, it can definitely interfere with our relationships in ways where, if we're too tied to our online interactions. But I could go in a lot more depth in this, but I'll keep it simple. I think it just changes our interactions, but it's too simplistic to say it makes it better or worse. Yeah, once it's on the web, you can't take it back. That's true. Why do we trust social media? Depends how you're defining trust here. I think we use social media because of all the the ease of use and the information that's available, and the ease of getting our own information out there, and that we just try to be careful in general with what we put out there, so that we don't put up something silly that we can't take back. That's how I would view that. Emma talks about the rise in social media is so high in the U.S. And this kind of like inability to access it in third world countries. And that makes me think of a pretty well-known theory called the knowledge gap. This is this idea that knowledge, much like wealth, gets distributed differently throughout social systems, and not surprisingly, higher socioeconomic status segments tend to acquire information faster than lower socioeconomic status populations. So what happens is that the gap in knowledge tends to increase rather than decrease. So you have people that have access to information gaining more and more information, more and more knowledge, and people without that access to that information not gaining that, and there's just a massive gap that occurs where you have the haves and the have-nots. And I think our social media landscape, to some extent, it plays a part in that. It is part of that process. It's those who have access to the media have access to information others don't. Now, at the same time, mobile technology is a lot cheaper, is becoming cheaper every year. Um, when I was a kid, it was a huge deal to have a desktop computer, and they were very expensive. And now you can, have you can get a smartphone for not that much, but that's saying not that much from a U.S., middle class perspective. Third world countries that don't have access to 4G and the same mobile technology that we do definitely will fall behind in terms of that. Jonathan asks, has social media given too loud of a voice or too much power to users that are undeserving? Again, it depends on how you define undeserving. I think the way I would talk about it is that social media allows, one downfall, no doubt, is that it allows idiots, or people that are disrespectful or rude or unkind, an easier venue to reach all sorts of people. This discussion was on the radio recently after one of the Nebraska football losses, in which they lost a tough game, and there was a discussion about all these people on Twitter saying all these horrible things to, these college students. And, they're technically not kids, they are adults, they're all 18 years old or older, but they just talked about how easy it is for people to reach these populations of students or, whoever it might be, that it's easy for people to reach them. And sometimes we tend to give more attention to people that are loud and rude and say their message the loudest. But that's a problem throughout society, not one that social media causes. It's just social media is that tool that people can use to get their loud message out there. Elena talks about people saying things on social media they wouldn't say in person. Are there any studies or theories that analyze why our identities can be so easily altered? So we do behave differently when we perceive ourselves to be anonymous. And let me tell you about a certain research study that was done at the University of Georgia by Jen Monahan. She took some college-age students and brought them in for research, and I don't know how she got this through the IRB board for approval, but she brought them in and got them drunk. And after getting all these college students drunk, sent them out into an environment they had created to make it seem like a dance club. So there was, lights and music and drinks and so on and so forth. And the variable that they adjusted throughout the study was how bright or dimly lit the room was. So it was either, bright or dark or dim, whatever it might be. And what they found was that the darker the lights, the more what they defined to be inappropriate behavior increased. So the darker the room, the more inappropriate the behavior, which I think has all sorts of ramifications for online behavior as well. It shows that in general, when we perceive ourselves to be anonymous, we behave differently. And yes, these were students who had been drinking and so on and so forth, but internet behavior shows us this is the same as well. When we're not worried about our public face, our public persona, we behave much differently. And yeah, that's a study that shows why we're different when we're online as opposed to not online, and especially when we're anonymous. Just go to 4chan and look at what gets posted there when it's completely anonymous, as opposed to, let's say, on your Facebook page where you're online, but you are, still held accountable for what you're saying. But then there's some people, even when they're on Facebook, they're more comfortable saying a message because it's just easier to them perhaps when there's not that immediate face-to-face feedback. Colin, I really liked your write-up here about the 4 principles that they discuss in the text about what sustains online communities: having a clear purpose or vision, having member role definition, having moderator leadership. So these first 3 things, I hope in this class, we have a clear purpose and vision of learning about social media, clear member role definition, and hopefully some sort of moderator leadership from me. But I agree with you, the online-offline events is maybe the most interesting thing. You talk about the need for satisfaction that the community members are getting out of the group rather than just conversation about a topic. And again, this is the struggle of engaging students in online classes. And as anyone who's doing any sort of work online, are the people there because they want to be there, or are the people there because they're forced to be there? Would you be participating in these social media discussions if you were not forced to get a grade for the class? Maybe not, and that's okay. That's how college classes work. But because of that online community is going to function differently than a community where everyone is there because they want to be there and they get, satisfaction from that community in ways that go beyond just discussing the topic. Absolutely. That's a really important point. Ethan, I thought this was huge. Is video game streaming a new category of social network? Absolutely. I think there's a wealth of research to be done on sites like Twitch TV. And, how is it different than a recorded gaming video? I mean, the fundamental difference to me is that you have live interaction. So now it better replicates the the social aspect of gaming. A huge reason why people enjoy gaming, other than the challenge of beating the game or whatever that might be, that own your self-driven motives. Another reason is the social factor of gaming. That's when I enjoy gaming the most, is not when I'm playing by myself, but when I'm playing with friends and we're gaming and having fun and joking around and whatever it might be. And streaming gives us that sort of ability to do that. And it also gives us the ability, it's like an ego boost in a way. We can create our own community where people come to watch us game and care about what we do when we game and care about what we say. I mean, it's like a blog, but it's in video game form. We like it when other people, let me type this in too and scroll down so you can see it. We like it when others value our knowledge or opinions. And I think that's a form of that. But there's been very little research into video game streaming and the rise of sites like Twitch TV, and I think you're onto something there. That's big. It's going to only get bigger. It's going to be huge, and that's where things are moving. I already got into Brianna's question about face-to-face interactions as well, so I think I covered everything I wanted to for this video. Keep up the reading and the great work you've been doing on these chapters. I appreciate your hard work and efforts in a class that's a little bit different, and we don't get to meet face-to-face, and it's going to function differently. But keep with it, and I think you'll really get something out of this class. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye.